Most of them, if not all of them, in fact, I do believe all of them, but you could correct me if I'm wrong, I sold on the basis that the items were unserviceable.
Yeah, and there's some errors in that, Mr.
Yes.
Chair. There are some errors because, and I must apologize for that. You know, I believe we've used a generic letter.
Yeah.
And so, failure to peruse.
Are you aware that the Finance and Audit Reform Act authorizes sale, but only through use of one or the other of defined tender procedures?
Yes.
And
Listening this morning, yes.
And are those tender procedures ever followed?
No.
The Prime Minister had mentioned, and I'm sure you listened, that Mr. Hugo Pat had made application to him for permission to buy his vehicle, by way of exception to a general policy that there would have been no such sales. You recollect that?
Yes, sir.
I noticed in the documentation that all the documents are addressed to Mr. Jovencio Herrera, and Mr. Hugo Pat's name, in fact, appears nowhere.
That is because there are times when requests are made. When someone is purchasing a vehicle or an air condition, they would request that the sales be made in someone else's name. That is, for our case, a standard practice.
Who is Mr. Jovencio Herrera?
I have no idea, sir.
He wouldn't happen to have been the driver for Mr. Pat, would
I
he?
have no idea who that person is.
I noticed in the letter approving the sale to Mr. Herrera that the vehicle is described as, well, there's another letter describing the vehicle as unserviceable, and in fact goes so far as to say that the vehicle is located with the unit and is considered beyond economical repairs. And this is a 2020 Toyota Tacoma.
No, that's an error. That's an error on that sales letter.
That's not true.
Yeah.
I noticed the same with the Hilux sold to Mr. Colin Griffith. It's also described as unserviceable. You could recall that one?
I recall that one, yes.
That was a seizure.
Yes. It's a vehicle that was not in the best of working condition.
But it wasn't unserviceable.
Not really. It could have been repaired. It could be repaired.
Yes. So that one, again, the documentation
Yeah, we need to correct that.
is an error.
I'll have my office correct those.
And I noticed as well all the furniture and the iPad and the laptop and the reinforced couches and chairs, the extra large ones for the former Attorney General.
Yes.
Those are also described as unserviceable.
Yes.
Was that an
Again,
error
we
as well?
follow. Yeah, General, it's the same thing.
Same thing,
Yes,
an
sir.
error. And the same is true, I flashed through again one for the judge, is also described as unserviceable, 288 Toyota Land Cruiser.
We will
That-
correct that. We will correct those as well.
Yes, was serviceable. And the one for Dr. Barnett as well,
Is that
And
marked
I
on
need-
serviceable as well?
yes, they all say unserviceable.
All right.
In terms of the one for Dr. Barnett, there would have only have been one bid for that car, and that's Dr. Barnett's bid. No bid to compare it against.
No.
The same with Judge Sosa's, the same with Michael Perifit's
Yes. Furnitures.
furnitures and computer equipment. He's the only one that bid for
Yes.
them. Colin Griffith
Yes, sir.
and Hugo Pat.
Yes.
So there wasn't any competitive bidding at all for any of these.
No, sir.
No, sir. And these prices and sales were all approved by, you say, the Prime Minister.
Yes. The only one that will probably not mark approve will be the one for Hugo Pat.
Well, you see, the problem I have, Mr. Vicente, is that in these sampling of files I have here, and I've looked at that the Prime Minister has personally approved, they were all approved on the basis that these items were unserviceable, and none of them were unserviceable.
We agree, but if you've been following, or since you've been following the discussion, you know, we have said that there were discussion between the Prime Minister and the financial secretary. And so once that comes on to me, then I
So
send out the
it's not that they didn't know, it's just that the documentation doesn't correctly
possibly.
reflect it.
Yes, sir.